Hello everyone and welcome to our talk today. We're going to be sharing, it's actually going to be me. I don't know how to say we, it's not raw we. I'm going to be sharing with you today 10 tips to help you improve your public speaking. And these are some of the tips that, I've learned over the years. That journey that I've taken from going to somebody who's shy and quiet, who never spoke up, never had a voice, and seeing how that affected my career to becoming more confident. And the one thing I love about public speaking is that as you grow your confidence, as you grow the confidence to speak up, to have a voice, that could be in a meeting, it could be in a presentation, whatever it is for you, right? I love the way it just spills out into all our lives. You don't just grow your comfort zone to become a better speaker. It helps you when you're chatting to people, talking to colleagues, neighbours, family, friends, wherever it is that we need to have a voice. It just helps us to feel more confident. And that confidence just leads us to have more success. And it's not just in our career where it's great because we've got more success, we stand more chance of getting promotion, we stand more chance of earning more, right? That's great. But it helps us in all other areas. As I say, building those friendships, building those relationships, talking on social media apps, whatever it is, right? It's all these different ways that as we grow our confidence and our public speaking skills, that's where we get success as we raise our profile. So if the idea of delivering a speech, talking in public, fills you with some kind of dread, fills you with anxiety, and maybe you're like me that right at the beginning, maybe now that you want to avoid it and you don't like speaking up in meetings. Maybe you're one of those people saying, I used to do this, you sit in a meeting and you think, I don't know, should I say it? Is it a good idea? I'm not sure. We have this internal dialogue going on, don't we? That we're worried about speaking up and are people going to say we're wrong? Are people going to say it's a silly idea, criticise us in public? And that little voice, that internal dialogue holds us back. And that used to be me all the time. And of course, when we do that, when we're not speaking up in meetings, two things happen, right? One, the moment passes. So it's too late to make that comment now or contribution because, the meeting's moved on, which they do. Or, and I think personally this is probably even worse, somebody else says exactly the same thing you were thinking. Exactly the same thing, and they get the credit, they get the kudos for it. And isn't that the worst? When somebody else has shared your idea and they get the credit. And I've got to be honest, that's something that kept happening to me time and time and time again. People who had the confidence got the success, right? They were, in so many cases, my newer colleagues, they had less experience, less knowledge, but they had the confidence. They could speak up. And that is what forced me to keep pushing myself, to start getting that confidence to speak up. To go from the guy who's shy and quiet to become somebody who can now confidently speak in front of hundreds. And as you'll see in my bio, I've written 5 books now on public speaking, and I love helping people who are like where I was, unconfident, had that fear, had that anxiety, and seeing how it can hold you back. And I love working with people, we see that transformation in people, and it says not just in speaking in meetings, speaking in the corporate career or your business, it's getting that success in our life, which to me is really what matters. As we go through this talk, if you've got any questions, please do let me know. I'd love to chat to you, love to hear what you've got to share, what you've got. So do let me know. I'd be delighted to engage with you in whatever way I can as well. So let's get into some of these 10 tips that I'm promising you, because I think these are the ones which I've worked through, and sometimes they may seem obvious, but then doesn't everything when we kind of really know it. But these strategies will just give you that little boost to help you next time that you're gonna speak in public. And I'll say, it may be a presentation, it could be a job interview, it could be speaking in a meeting, or even for me, where I used to get the anxiety, it could even just be, going through an annual review, which many times in my corporate career I had to do with my manager, just the two of us. And yet, because I had to express myself and what I've been doing over the year, the work I've been doing, what I wanted to do, ask for things like courses and trainings, I used to get anxious beforehand, before that meeting. That's how nervous and shy I was. Because here's the thing, when we look at other people, colleagues, people speaking, don't we often think that they are naturally confident, and how ultimately it's just us, isn't it? It's just us who gets that anxiety, who feels the tension. Maybe there's something wrong with us, that we are the ones who get nervous. But anxiety and nervousness is actually natural and normal. And even to a degree, desirable. You see, I've thought that I could grow my confidence, and I could look out, and I did in fact look out for a long time. I kind of like a magic pill, as I like to call it. It's just one tip, a tactic, a strategy, something that would take away all of my anxiety, so that I would never again feel any fear when it came to public speaking. None at all. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want to have this. I wanted to get rid of it totally. But I will say to you that, first of all, having nervousness, especially when you're starting out, having this anxiety and this fear, is perfectly natural and normal. As my skills grew and as I became a professional speaker, I would go to events and I knew that people were going to speak. I could see the nerves in them, the anxiety. There's certain mannerisms which we all do, and I used to do them, that just kind of leak out. Because these people who I thought were natural, who were confident, who were fearless, right? Now, when I was watching them, I realised, so they are nervous after all. But at the time, I didn't realise. I was thinking it was just me. I remember going to an event once. I didn't know anybody there. I just sat down and I said to the lady sitting next to me, "Oh, you're speaking today?" And she went, "Oh, yes, I am. How did you know?" I said, "Oh, lucky guess." But it wasn't. I could see all the anxieties leaking out of it, because she was doing the things that I used to do. The mannerisms, the editing her notes, trying to learn it all again. Even though I'm sure she'd rehearsed and she gave a fantastic presentation. But in the moment you feel you've got to keep reading your notes, you've got to learn more. We build up that nervousness. So remember that nervousness is natural, it's normal. And that really is tip 1 of these 10, is to really acknowledge to yourself that the way you feel, feeling anxious, feeling nervous, is totally normal and natural. You're not abnormal, which for some of you may be a relief, but it's so true, right? Well, it's not abnormal to be nervous when you're speaking in public. And that should take off some pressure to know that, because feeling it's normal, knowing that what you're going through when you're going to give a presentation or a speech or a comment in a meeting, whatever it is, take that pressure off, because anxiety is there for a reason. when we can control it to the point that it's a little bit of anxiety, a little bit, and I would say a little bit, it puts us on our game. It shows we care, we're alive, right? We want to do a good job. And that's why I said earlier, that when I started speaking and I wanted to get rid of all that anxiety, I just wanted to be like popping to the supermarket. I had no feelings at all. But that would be undesirable. I now realise that a little bit of anxiety, it shows you care, right? It shows that you want to do a good job. And if we're speaking in public, we should want to do a good job, because people are listening to us. People are giving up some of their time, some of their life, right? Even if we're doing a 20-second question, that 20 seconds is part of somebody's life they're never going to get back again. So we should care about that. We should want to really engage with our audience. So just remember that nerves are normal, they're natural, and a little bit is really good to have because it shows you want to do well. So that is the first of these 10 tips to improve your public speaking success. If you've got any questions on that or any comments or contributions, love to hear them. Do let me know. Happy to help in any way that I can, or to hear from you as well. So let's look at our second tip here of 10 that we're doing. Now, we were talking there in the first tip about nerves being normal, but when we're nervous, and I'm sure you would have realised this from public speaking nerves or indeed any anxiety we feel, we get these physical symptoms, don't we, when we're nervous? We start getting the pounding heart, maybe the sweaty palms come in, don't they? The dry throat, the butterflies in the belly. We get all these symptoms kicking in. And as our body's under pressure, what we start to do is we start to alter our breathing. Our breathing becomes rapid and shallow. It's part of the thing that we might have to run away. It's kind of whole part of the fight or flight response. And if we're not breathing now, because our breath is shallow, it's rapid, if you think about that, it's quite difficult to carry on a conversation, wouldn't it be, if you had that kind of breathing going on? And therefore, if we're not getting the breath in, it makes it difficult to speak. And then is now putting our body under even more pressure, right? Because we're not getting the oxygen. So remember to breathe. Remember, we need it, right? We all know we need to breathe to live. So if we're not breathing, we're going to die. Ultimately, of course, we know that. But also, we might die on the stage if we're not speaking, figuratively, of course, because we can't breathe. It just builds up the anxiety, it builds up the stress that we're feeling as our body's not getting the oxygen. And it's not just while we're speaking, it's in those moments beforehand. Because what typically happens before we're going to speak, and gosh, was I so guilty of this all the time. Be it you're sitting down waiting to speak in a meeting, maybe you're going around a table to talk, or you're standing in the back of the room waiting to walk to the front, or it could be on Zoom even, your turn's coming. First of all, we often close down. We kind of fold our shoulders, fold our arms, we're kind of hunching over. We're shutting our body down. So it's a defensive mechanism ultimately, but it makes it hard to breathe. What we want to do is do the opposite. Open the body up, shoulders back, arms relaxed down by the side. Whether you're standing, whether you're sitting, look up, head up, and take some nice, slow, deep breaths. The one I often talk about to my clients is the 4 square breathing. Whereas what you do, because remember, we're breathing is now becoming fast, it's becoming shallow and rapid, and we want to be able to have some good, deep breathing. So to regulate that is to do it on the count of 4. So it's to breathe in slowly for 4 seconds, then to hold it for 4 seconds. To now breathe out slowly for 4 seconds, to hold that out breath for 4 seconds, to breathe in for 4 seconds and repeat. And if you try that, you'll see that you're now regulating your breathing. You're relaxing yourself. The body's not under stress now. It's getting the oxygen it needs. So breathing is so important. And that is before we even start speaking. We will be aware of it, because so we will be doing the opposite. Crunching our shoulders over. If you're standing up because it's an in-person, you're folding the arms. The arms nice and relaxed. Be aware of it. And that ultimately is what all these tips are, is awareness of it, some of it, and then put it into practice. Notice when you're shutting yourself down, because nobody ever told me that. You know, when I look back, my gosh, that's what I used to do all the time. I'll sit there hunched over, it's like, you know, holding a mobile phone, really closed in, not breathing. And then sometimes I'd even get on the speaking area at this in-person event. I remember doing it and not having any breath at all. I was out of breath before I even started my presentation. So you can imagine how that goes, can't you? You haven't even got the breath to give your opening sentences. So that's why it's just absolutely crucially important to breathe. That, it helps the body, gives you the speaking voice, and it just relaxes you. And by relaxing you, the brain can function, you can think of your opening lines, you're ready to go. So be aware of that. And also be aware of it if you're getting anxious like I used to, in the days and the weeks beforehand. I used to get anxious about my speaking weeks beforehand and to get all those symptoms. That's how scared I was. So be aware of it. Notice if your breathing is getting shallow and rapid, go to the 4 square breathing. 4 in, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, and repeat. I promise. Do you know what? If you don't listen to another word I say, remember that you will feel more confident, more relaxed the next time you are speaking in public. So it could be a meeting, job interview, standing and giving a presentation, Zoom, whatever it is for you. Remember the breathing, be aware of it, and that will make such a difference. So there we are. We've got through 2 of our 10 already. And again, if you've got any questions, any contributions, love to hear from them as well. So when we are feeling anxious, and this is something, all these things, right, I have done as well. When we feel anxious about something, it builds up the anxiety. The easiest way we can convince ourselves to remove that anxiety is not to think about it. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? If thinking about giving a presentation makes you anxious, don't think about it. You won't get anxious. Brilliant. And that works for a while. Because ultimately you've got to think about it. Eventually the meetings are going to come up at which you're speaking. You've got to deal with it. So by not thinking about it, by leaving it to the last minute, it just adds to the pressure at the end, at the moment. I mean, how can you feel relaxed and confident about speaking in public, giving a presentation, giving a team update, when you prepared 2 hours beforehand, an hour beforehand? How can you? You can't, can you? And I know, because that's exactly what I used to do. I used to get anxious about my presentations, my team updates, wherever it was, right? Wherever I was going to be the centre of attention. So what I would do, I would blank it out of my mind. Don't think about it. Never thought about it. Of course I had to, and I then would be manically creating presentation slides 2 hours before the meeting, making notes an hour beforehand. And then I went into the room, sheer panic, right? Absolute panic. I remember standing there so stressed out and looking a bit. I never actually saw a single face. Do you know that? It was kind of like, I don't know how you describe it, a mist. Can you imagine looking for a mist at people? That's all I saw. I knew how to look at people. I knew how to make eye contact. But I never saw anyone. Somebody could have raised their hand and asked a question. I would not even have noticed it. I was in my head, trying to remember my words, looking at my notes, looking at them. So much going on. I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. And that is why I messed up. And that's what built my stress as well. So when we feel that, is pull it aside and start preparing your presentation. We need to prepare any presentation, any talk, speech, whatever it is. We need to start preparing and practicing as early as you possibly can. You can never prepare too early. Never. Never prepare too early. I know professional speakers who, when they have a booking, they start preparing, even if the talk's a year out. These like keynote speakers going into big conferences, a year out. So therefore you'd have to ask, if a keynote speaker needs a year, why does somebody who does it occasionally need an hour? We need to prepare. Start thinking about your presentation. Start preparing. Think about it in your mind. You haven't got to write notes at this stage, the first stage. Just think, what do I want to cover? How can I share it? How can I help my audience? What do they want to know? There's so many things we can start thinking about. Start preparing your presentation as early as you can. And then we can get into the practice. Start practicing it. Prepare, practice, prepare and practice. You really want to do as much as you can till you feel comfortable. Now, practicing your speech is not learning it. It's not learning it verbatim, word for word. It's internalizing it, getting to understand it, getting to know the key points. What do you want to share with people? So it becomes like one of those stories you share with your family, your friends about your weekend, your holiday, something that happened at work. Maybe you'll alter the words, but the gist stays the same, the core part of it as well. So prepare and practice. Practice as much as you can. It really is important to do that. The more you practice, the more confident you feel. And isn't that what we want? To feel confident? So prepare and practice as early as you can. Again, that is going to lead to your success. That will lead to you feeling confident. That will lead to you enjoying the occasion. And if you're enjoying it, so will your listeners as well. That is our third tip today. So let's recap quickly. The first one is to acknowledge nervousness. Acknowledge it yourself. Right? It's normal. It's natural. You're normal by feeling some anxiety as well. Notice on tip 2 was about breathing, because when we're feeling anxious, and this could be weeks before your presentation, it could be an hour beforehand, it could be a minute beforehand. Remember to breathe, to relax. The breathing helps us focus. Be aware of if we're getting rapid and shallow. And then tip 3, prepare and practice. Don't let the anxiety trick you into thinking you can just leave it to the last minute. Leave it for another day. No. No such thing as leaving it for another day. Start now. Start today. Or maybe not right now, because you're listening to me. But wait until you have time, when I'm not talking that is, but start thinking about it. What do you want to talk about? Get to know the content, start preparing it, then start practicing it as well. That is tip 3. Now, when we are practicing our speech, one of the things which is, especially at the later stages, rehearse them. Rehearse everything. And I mean, are you going to use slides? Use them in your later presentation, in your later rehearsals as you're practicing. If you're going to use a prop, include it. That makes you feel comfortable that you can use them, that they work as you expected, and then record it. Now, I know one of the challenges when it comes to it is recording, is because we think, oh, I've got to look at myself. And who wants to look at themselves? I remember looking like this through, fingers, my eyes through my fingers, really, really looking, thinking to myself, what is it that I've got to look at? I hated looking at myself like that, right? Sorry, that. I hated looking at myself, right? I hated seeing myself. Some people don't mind. For me, I did not want to look at myself. That, I don't know. Again, I think it's a confidence issue, right? It's a confidence issue to see ourselves. So do not worry about that. Be ready. Rehearse, record every single presentation, and then watch it back. As you watch it back, you will find your confidence grows, and that again leads you to have even more success, which of course is what it's all about, isn't it? That is what it is all. Change it. Alter the phrase, alter the word. We have that time. That's why it's just so important to start early, record it, see what you're doing well, see what you're doing well and how you can be even better. Maybe get some feedback from other people on your recording as well. Ask some specific questions about the recording of what, do they understand the message? Do you look engaging? No, I'm not, what do you think? And I say, yeah, you're great. We want specific feedback as well. Now, you don't need any special kit to record your speech, your rehearsals. Use your smartphone. Position your webcam somewhere. If you're speaking on Zoom or online, use Zoom. I mean, Zoom, I don't know about Teams, but Zoom, even if you've got a free account, you can log in yourself, record the presentation and watch it back. So you can check all the tech, you can make sure it all works as well for you. There's so many ways that we can just record our presentations, practice it and build our confidence. Because if you go through all these things, that's what will happen. You will feel confident at the end because you know you're ready to deliver that presentation. Our fifth tip is to prepare some little notes. Not a script, notes. There's a difference between a script and notes. So what we do is we sometimes will want to have a script, because if we forget our words, we can look at the script. But what will happen is, first of all, we can read it. And let's be honest, why do we want to sit in a meeting? I mean, why would you, if it was you, want to sit in a meeting and have somebody read to you? We don't, right? I mean, have you ever sat in a meeting and have somebody read the slides to you? That's pretty boring. Well, I think, God, we read quicker than they can talk. I've read it and they're still reading it. And I think, why don't you email it to me? And it's the same with somebody's reading the script. You're holding the script, your eyes keep going down to find out where you are. You look up, then your eyes got to go down a bit further. You look up. You just lose total engagement with the audience. It's the first thing. And secondly, written English and spoken English are different. And therefore it sounds unnatural as well. So you're not connecting with the audience. You're not sounding right. You're not looking at them. So have a few key words. Right, because you're preparing, you rehearsed it, you practice it, you will know the content. So what I would suggest is a few keywords on some cards. Palm size, so they can fit in the palm. If you're doing it in person, they sit in the palm, they're numbered, and they're there as a safety blanket, just in case. And it gives you that bit of confidence that they're there. I would suggest putting them in your pocket if you can, because if they're in the hand, you will look at them. So try and put them in the pocket numbered, and if you need them, you can look at them. If you're on Zoom or online meetings, you can have a few keynotes, few little words, maybe in a text document on the screen. But then what you want to do, put them in the top third of the screen, right at the top, and then you can look at the notes whilst you're still looking at the webcam. So people won't notice. Whereas if you're looking down at your notes, you're looking over there, over here, people will notice you're looking away from the webcam. So therefore, have them on the screen, have them at the top third. It looks like you're looking at people, even though you can still have the note. It's important. Keywords, not a script. That's again part of the preparation. One of the things that will happen is as you're preparing, you're rehearsing, going through it, you'll get to know the content. And then if you say a couple of words that are different, it doesn't matter. Remember, when we're speaking in public, nobody knows what we're going to say. No one. So if we don't say it, we alter it, we change it in some way, no one knows. So don't beat yourself up over it. I remember once I said the word could in my speech. Could. I should have said the word should. So I said could instead of should. And then my little voice was, oh my God, you said the wrong word. Why did you say that? You rehearsed could. Why did you say should for? Who knows? And quite frankly, what difference did it make? So don't beat yourself up over that. Just go with what comes out. You got the keywords. They will keep you on track. They are your safety blanket, which is important, one again, to prepare early, because then we have that ready as well. So that is tip 5, to have those notes. Tip 6, to help you improve your success when it comes to public speaking, is to become comfortable with the pause. It's so funny, when we're speaking in public, we don't like to pause. Because what happens when we pause? Everyone's looking at us. And it's that thought of having everybody looking at us while we're not talking. It's quite scary, isn't it? But the pause is so valuable. Get used to the pause. And here's why it's valuable. When we pause, it helps the audience. It helps us as a speaker. So let's look at us as a speaker first of all. When we pause, it gives us 2 opportunities. One, to breathe. Right? We can breathe when we're not talking. We can pause, take a breath, and carry on. That's important. Again, that makes us feel more relaxed. Secondly, when we pause, it gives our brain a little bit more time to think of what we want to say next, rather than running it all on. And actually, it also reduces any temptation to say, you know what I mean, right. Because we're still now talking, we're putting all these fillers in. And if we pause, it removes those fillers. So pausing helps us, gives us an opportunity to breathe, gives us an opportunity to think. Consider it like reading a book. If there's a comma, it's a short pause. The end of a sentence, a longer pause. Now the audience, they will not notice your pausing. I know we think, well, especially when we started down, we're feeling the anxiety. We think the audience are, oh my gosh, he paused. They don't. The audience will use it as an opportunity to think. And that's what's so important. Because we are talking, we're sharing information. We want them to think about it, to understand it, to digest it. Which is where pausing is so important. When we're pausing, we're giving them the opportunity to do so. What I would suggest doing is pausing, like I say, comma or sentence, different lengths. But certainly pause for a little bit longer if it's a point you want them to think about. It's a piece of new information. Maybe you want them to answer the question in their mind. Pausing is a valuable tactic to help us and to help our audience. Nobody ever sits there. And in fact, maybe think, have you ever sat in an audience and thought, gosh, that's a 2-second pause, that's a bit uncomfortable. 2 seconds there. Oh, that's 2.5 that time. Gosh, I really don't like this. Of course we don't. We don't even notice it. It actually adds to the speech when we can the speaker is pausing because we can now think about it, consider it, digest it. It helps us in so many ways as a speaker. It helps our audience. And ultimately, isn't that why we're speaking? It helps them with their understanding, which is what we want. Get comfortable with the pause. One way we can get comfortable with the pause is to rehearse them. Practice pausing. When you're giving those rehearsals, when you're practicing in your living room, your bedroom, or wherever it is, put it in there. Include it. What I had to do, because I struggled to pause at the beginning. Now, when I'm excited, when I'm with my friends and I'm excited and happy, I talk really fast. So you can imagine when I was nervous and anxious, I spoke even faster. So I would actually mark in the seconds to pause. So in my script, when I was doing it, when I was reading it, I would have pause and then I'd count in my mind. 1, 2, 3. Then I'd carry on. And then it's 1, 2, 3. Now, when it came to the real event, obviously I didn't verbalise 1, 2, 3. And in fact, I did, rather than going 1, 2, 3, it became 1, 2, 3. But at least there was a pause. At least there was a pause, which helped me and helped the audience. So get comfortable with that silence. Don't fill it with other ums, so's, you knows, and all those other bits of verbal garbage that we can put in. Get used to it. It helps us, helps the audience, which is the most important point as well. Becoming comfortable with the silence and the pause is tip 6 of our 10 today to help you with your public speaking success. Number 7 would be being aware of those things at the end of our arms, our hands. It's so fun, isn't it, that when we're speaking in public, suddenly we become aware of our hands. Now, they're there the whole time. They're there 24 hours a day. But when we're suddenly speaking in public, we're suddenly aware of them. We're suddenly not sure what to do with them. We have to do something with these hands. You know, they're there all day, but suddenly when we're speaking, we suddenly find we need to do something with them. So be aware of what you are doing with your hands. It could be you start pushing your glasses up regularly every time. You start playing with an earring, filling with a watch, filling with a ring. Put them in your pockets. Be aware of anything we do that is distracting to the audience. Now, pushing your glasses up is fine, for example. Adjusting your ring is fine. Anything we do occasionally is absolutely fine. But when we're doing it repetitively, it becomes a distraction. So be aware of what you're doing with your hands. Ideally, we want to look natural, like we do when we're talking in conversations. And that's one of the reasons I'd also say we don't want to rehearse gestures, because otherwise a gesture comes on a key word and then we make the gesture on the key word. And then it just kind of looks abnormal, doesn't it? It's kind of like a delayed, the video and the voice become kind of like out of sync. So be aware of our hands. Make them natural. Don't put them in pockets. Don't kind of hold them tightly in front of you as though you're praying or you're trying to do something. So it becomes like a white knuckle ride. I've seen that where you can see the knuckles are going wide because they're holding their hand so tightly together. Make your hand gestures natural. Make them normal. Be aware of what they are you're doing with them. They're great for reinforcing points, for counting things out. The hands are amazing to help understand the message. But just notice if you put them somewhere you shouldn't, like say pockets, they're hidden away, behind your back, folded in front of you with your arms, or you're making any repetitive gestures. Again, it's the way that the anxiety and the nerves we may be experiencing can be seeping out, which we don't really want. Just be aware of them. And again, that comes down to preparing and rehearsing. Because when we're watching those recordings, like I suggested earlier, we notice what we are doing during those moments. You see why it's important to start preparing early. Why it's important to prepare early and watch recordings as well so we can see our gestures. So important. It all kind of dovetails together to lead to our success. Tip 8 is particularly important if we're speaking in public, in-person events, and if we are standing up, because it's how we move. Now, when I started giving presentations, I knew I had to move. I had to use the speaking area. So I moved. And I did it. I've got a video of me doing this. I look like a caged lion. You ever seen them go move left and right, left and right? All I did was walk up and down the stage. Bum, bum, bum. But I was using the speaking area. I thought to myself, this is what you got to do. I think people watching it, to the audience, it's like they were watching a tennis match as I moved up and down. That's all I did. That is not using the stage. It's not moving around. Now, one of the reasons we start doing that is because we're anxious. We've got adrenaline pumping through our body. And by moving around, obviously we're working off the adrenaline. Great for us, not so great for the audience. So we want to only move on purpose. What I suggest, start at the centre if you're standing up and you're doing it in person. Take a pace or two to your right. Deliver a point. Maybe take another pace. Deliver another point. Obviously it depends how big the speaking area is. Are you in a small meeting room? Are you in a large meeting room? Are you in an auditorium? It all depends how much movement you would make. But the key is to start at the centre, stay there for a while, and then move a little pace at the time. Not too much in one go. Not walking up and down like your caged lion like I used to do. Because that again is showing you're anxious as all that anxiety is seeping out. Move with purpose. Move to reinforce the points that you are making. That is what it is. That again leads to your success. Because you're going to feel more confident standing there, owning the speaking area and presenting out as well. Really important to notice how you are doing that as well. That, my friends, is tip 8 of our 10. We are getting through them. I just realised myself how we're getting through them so quickly as well. I just think of a situation. Imagine you're out with a group of friends and then somebody's sharing a story with you. Have you ever experienced it? Or if you can't think of a time, just think of how you'd feel. If you're say you've got a group of friends, you're sitting around, somebody's sharing a story and they don't look at you once while they're sharing that story. You're going to feel left out, aren't you? It soon becomes noticeable that that person isn't looking at you. You think, why are they not looking at me? They're talking to my friends. Why are they not talking to me? And that's how important eye contact is. And that's why when we're delivering a presentation, we want to make eye contact with our audience. And it is eye contact, not forehead contact or hair contact like I've tried doing. It's actually looking at them, making eye contact. Again, I know when starting off, it's a bit nervous, they're looking at me, but actually it will help you feel more confident. Because when you look at someone and you can see they're engaged with you, they're interested, maybe they're making notes, they're smiling, they're nodding, that helps you to feel confident. The people are interested in what you're sharing. And isn't that what we want? People to be interested, people to be engaged with what we're sharing. So important to build your confidence. The way to do it, I would suggest, is look at someone in one part of the room and deliver a sentence. Then as the sentence finishes, slowly, casually but purposely, move to someone else in a different area of the room. Deliver another sentence. As that sentence is closing off, move to the next, and so forth. But include the whole room, everyone in the room. Now, you don't have to look at every single person, but if you're looking at one area, people in the other area will feel that you're included. The people around them will. Remember, if you're speaking to people in rows, to look at the front rows. Often we can ignore them because we're too busy thinking about other people, looking further at back. So include everyone. If you're delivering an online presentation, look at the webcam. That's the only place to look. That little light. What we can feel then, it's kind of counterintuitive that we should look at people. So we start looking at all the faces on the screen. But if we're looking down at the faces on the screen to make eye contact, we're now not looking at them because we're not looking at the webcam. If it's online, focus only on the webcam. That instantly gives you eye contact with everybody in the room. Everybody in that meeting room thinks you're looking at them. If it's an in-person event, different. We want to look purposely around. A bonus, I think, of making eye contact with people is actually it does reduce the fillers. So if you ever suffer, or not suffer, putting the right word, experience fillers, you're something you'd like to reduce, keep the eye contact. What I often see is people, and I was working with one of my clients only yesterday, he does this all the time. He always makes filler sounds. He always goes, the moment he does one of two things. He looks up at the ceiling or down at the floor. As soon as he does one of those, the fillers come out. So maintaining the eye contact, which I got him to do, reduces those fillers. That's, I think, is a great bonus for that. Keeping the eyes focused on the audience. It makes everybody feel included. It reduces the fillers. So it's a win for them. It's a win for you, which is what we want, isn't it? If you've got any questions, got any comments, I'd love to hear from you. So do feel free to let me know. Happy to help. Tip 5 to help you get your success. It's something we can be a bit scared of. But again, it's so important. Feedback. Feedback, feedback, feedback. Ask people for constructive feedback on your speech, your presentation. Now, what I would suggest doing, ask them before you do it. Because people may not pay attention. They may not listen. They may be distracted. But if you ask people for feedback, they will take notes. I mean, I've had people ask me for feedback 2 weeks after they gave the talk. And I had seen dozens of other speeches before then. So it wasn't fair for me to give them constructive, detailed feedback. Because my mind was a bit blurred. It all got mixed up with all the other speeches. So ask them for, not let me know how you think I did. Because they say, oh yeah, you did a great job, Andy. It's really good. Right? People will tell you it's good. Ask specific feedback. Think of an area or areas that you would like to grow on, you would like feedback on, and ask them those particular questions. Like, for example, you might say, did my opening capture your attention? Was the point I was going to cover clear to you from the outset? Did I make effective use of the stage? Did you feel my eye contact included you in the meeting? When I closed my presentation, did it summarise everything that had been covered? Did I handle the Q&A session fairly and constructively? So think about yourself and what you're covering, and then ask some people who will be listening for their feedback. And by giving them those specific questions, you will get their views. And everybody has a view. Now, sometimes you may not agree with that. That's okay. But you're getting their feedback and it's a valid point. Because remember, if one person feels it, others might. I remember asking somebody for feedback once and they said it wasn't clear. This one point just was not clear. And I thought, well, I explained that really clearly. I don't get why you don't understand. This is what I thought, I didn't say it. And then when I checked through, which will be the next point, what you should always do to know this, because I didn't actually do it as well as I thought I had, because I checked the recording. Record all your speeches and presentations. I went back, took all the feedback, listened back to what I said, and they were spot on. I hadn't. Maybe I'd have missed that if I hadn't got the feedback. So record all of your talks and presentations. You'll see how well you've done, often better than you think you have. But also you'll see areas that you can do better. When I'm doing a presentation, I actually have a little tripod. If it's in-person event, I stand it at the back. I just put my iPhone in it. Pop it in there just before I'm about to start. Mute it, of course, or put it on to airplane mode. So you don't want it ringing while you're talking. Record it and then see how well you've done. If you're in a meeting and maybe you can't do that, it could be a bit more formal, at least record the audio. That way you've got something to go back on. If it's a Zoom event or Teams event, you can record that. You can ask the organiser to give you rights to record if it's not your event. Again, record it, listen back. And sometimes you can cover some great content. Depending on what you're speaking on, if it's your business, you may be able to use that for something else. For a quick video on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, right? So always record. Something I missed out on at the beginning. And again, so much value in that, to always record, always get the feedback so you know. Feedback is just so useful. I always ask people feedback on all my talks and all my presentations, and I've learned so much. Sometimes the points weren't clear, and you might see a theme that you think you've done something, but if there's a theme in the feedback, it's going to help you be even better next time, which is what it is all about, isn't it? We want to be better, to grow. So getting the feedback is tip 10. Really, really important. So let me just recap now what we have covered in our time together, as we've covered these 10 tips to help with your public speaking success. Really important ones that will help you. Just follow these and I guarantee you're going to be feeling much better when you're next speaking in public. First of all, nerves, the anxiety that we can all feel. Remember, nerves are natural, nerves are normal. Recognize that, notice it, and then don't think it's only you. Everybody gets them, and as I said earlier, it's even desirable to have a little bit of anxiety. It brings out your A game. Notice your breathing. It can become rapid, it can become shallow and fast, right? And when you get this rapid, shallow breathing, we're not getting the oxygen into our body. It builds up the anxiety. Do the 4 square breathing, which I mentioned. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, in for 4. All that breathing, 4 seconds, regulates it, calms you down, and you'll feel so much better. You can actually use that anytime you're feeling anxiety, quite frankly, not just public speaking. Tip 3 was to prepare as soon as you can. Preparation could be in the mind, doesn't have to be sitting down at your laptop. In fact, I would when I first started giving presentations, I'll sit down at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon and write my first speech. You sit down and think, what am I going to do? I don't know what it's going to be. So I just start thinking about it. When you're walking around, when you're doing the housework, when you're doing whatever, just figure out, what would I like to cover? What could I share with people? And by doing so, you've got something when it comes to sitting in front of your laptop, something to start writing. Personally, I often like to do it by pen and paper as well. I find it helps it's more creative for me. Prepare, practice as early as you can, and then record as well. As you've in the latter stages of those rehearsals, start recording them, watching them back, getting feedback on those as well, seeing areas that you can improve on, seeing what you're doing well on. Often we are our own worst critic. See where we can be better as well. Tip 5 was to have some notes. Prepare some notes in advance. Minimal notes. Please, minimal. If it's in person, some little cue cards maybe that fit in the palm of your hand you can use if you really need them. Number them in case you accidentally drop them. Pop them in your pocket as well. You don't want to be holding them, because if you're holding them, you'll use them. If you're using online meetings, few keywords at the top of the screen, and then they're there again. Because at the top you can still look at the webcam, and of course you can still engage with the audience, so we need to look at the webcam as well. Tip 8 was the pause. Get used to the pause. Maybe incorporate that in your rehearsals as well. Get used to pausing. It helps you to breathe, helps you to think of the next point, helps the audience to consider the point that you've just shared. It helps them with their understanding. That's how important the pause is when we are speaking as well. Tip 7 was to be aware of our hand gestures. When we're feeling a little bit anxious, these little things at the end of our arms, we suddenly start becoming aware of them, don't we? We start worrying about them. So notice what we're doing, any repetitive gestures, anything that could become distracting to our audience. Purposeful gestures to reinforce the point, to count out the points we're making are all great. They help with the understanding. Tip 8. If you're in person, use the speaking area. Don't stand rigid in the centre. Move to the left, move to the right. How far, how much, depends on the space available. But make it purposeful, on point. Couple of paces at a time. Not left, right, left, right, left, right, like I used to do, as I said, the cage line. That, again, helps the audience, helps you as well. Don't let the anxiety and the adrenaline have you running all over the place. Then we said eye contact is important. If it's an in-person meeting, look at someone, deliver a sentence, slowly move to another part of the room, deliver another sentence, and so forth. If it's online, focus on the webcam. The webcam is a place to look at. That automatically means you're making eye contact with everyone. If you struggle looking at the webcam, you can always put a picture of a loved one, a pet, even a smiley face next to it, or maybe an arrow pointing to it to remind you to look at the webcam. That's where we want to be all the time. Not looking down at the faces, because we're looking down at the faces on the screen, we're then by default not looking at the webcam, or we're not looking at the people because we're not looking at the webcam. So keep the focus on the webcam as well. And then tip 10, our final tip of our public speaking 10 tips to improve your success, is feedback.